Everybody, just doing a little bit of a hobby update for my Avengers. What I've got here, I don't have the bases finished, but I've finished 3 of my Avengers, and so I've got the Black Panther, Thor, and Black Widow, and so yeah, so here they are, and I'm somewhat pleased with them. I would say I spent the most amount of time on Thor, and then probably the Black Panther, and then probably Black Widow. I think mainly it was just the nature of the amount of detail on the costume for Black Widow where I spent a little bit less. I ended up putting a blue glaze on Black Panther, and that was to mimic, not just to do a black blue, which is often kind of done, but if you look at some of the early Marvel comics in the 60s and the 70s and things where they show Black Panther, they often will show highlights and accentuate the light on Black Panther with like a blue color. And I just thought that would be kind of cool. I actually saw somebody else do it too. I honestly was thinking of doing this all along because I just looked at Black Panther and I ended up and just seeing the images, I was kind of like going for the retro look, and I saw somebody else do it, and they used a blue ink where I used a blue glaze, but I think it actually came out nice. So I'm quite pleased with this one. And got Black Widow. I airbrushed a dark gray over, like sort of like a zenith highlight on her. I think it came out fine. It's just sort of like a monotone outfit. One thing about night models is the females, they do make really, really thin. Like the legs are just like really, really thin. I know people worry about breaking the ankles and things like that. They are nice sculpts for sure, but they're a bit delicate to say the least. I'm not going to do the bases until last, because I am doing them all pretty much the same. I definitely spend the most time on Thor. I think it required it in some ways, because there was just some different types of painting that had to be done, but then also he's never been my favorite character in the comics at all, but I just wanted him, I wanted to work really hard to try to get some different elements to him. I did do some can't really see. I can see it through my naked eye. I'm hoping you can see it through the viewfinder, but I did quite a bit of wet blending and highlights on the cape. So hopefully you see the oranges in there that I did, that I put in there. I am happy with how that came out. I used some new metal, the Vallejo acrylic metal color for the armor, and I'm really, really happy with these paints. I think it's Vince Venturella, who does a lot of the Age of Sigmar and Warhammer Fantasy stuff. I saw his review of the paints, and I was almost ready to get some of the liquid gold style metallics, and then I saw these, and I'm really glad that I got these. I'm going to talk about those more later when I talk about what's coming up next, but I am happy with how this came out. You know what's really funny is as a longtime Marvel fan, I was never really into Thor, but I actually got into Thor more since the movies, even though I've read Marvel comics for a long time. I really liked the Thor movies, and I really like Thor in the Avengers movies. There's something about, because I tend to read the Marvel comics more for the superhero genre, which I oftentimes didn't associate with Asgard, and just the Asgard aspect of Marvel Comics was never really high on my list of interesting, when I read the comics. But when I saw it in the movies, like on the screen, and in that sort of context, I really liked it. Like, I liked the first Thor movie quite a bit, and I really liked the second Thor movie too. And so it kind of got me where I really wanted to do a good job on this guy, and I think I did it okay, and I did a very muted stone effect on Mjolnir, and I am happy with how it came out. I did do edge highlighting, but it is not high contrast. There is some contrast for sure, but yeah, so I did do that. Yeah, so quite happy with how Thor came out. And before I talk about those metallic paints and what's coming up next, I'm slowly but surely working on the Hulk, and I actually have to zoom out a little bit just to get him in here. I did the gap filling that I talked to everybody about, and that was quite a bit of work to smooth that out and do a lot of gap filling on him. But then I spent my time on the base itself. I wanted to create just sort of a rubble field. I have a piece of sprue here that I'm using as sort of like a concrete divider, like you would have in like a construction area. But I put green stuff and all over the top of this MDF base, and I built kind of mounds on it to create like a bit of rubble mounds, and then I put a number of bricks all over. I took pieces that I had left over, some of my foreground stuff of wood. So I'm just going to focus in a little bit here. So these were really nice to save, just for, I'll get a pointer too, just for pieces of wood, to looking like you destroyed through a structure or just flying debris and stuff. And I also put in a number of pieces of wire. Well, in this case, I've got wire sticking in to these mounds before they hardened of green stuff. But then I also have pieces of metal that I've twisted into pipe, even though it's in case I even have the wood going in there. So I think this will be a nice base. I have just some pieces of metal too, just random junk and bricks. So I think that'll be quite good. I'm going to prime over all of it, and I'll end up painting the wood to look like wood again. These I could have put these on afterwards because they look so good as is, but I think I'm just going to end up painting them. Yeah. So that is the Hulk, and now the Hulk I'm doing just mostly for fun, and also just to do all my Avengers at once, but I can't use him in the game until he's complete. Okay, so Hulk is up next too, like he'll be being done in the near future, but the next two I'll be doing before the Hulk will be Captain America and Iron Man. I'm going to do Iron Man next, and I've always been quite worried, like still a little am, as to how how Iron Man will come out. And part of that is just because he's such an iconic character for me. Also because it's just completely metal. It's just so easy to make him not look good. And so I've opted not to do non-metallic metal on Iron Man. Like, I'm just not up for the challenge. I just don't feel that. Like, the Goblin glider was one thing, like, to attack, and I'm happy with it. I'm pleased with the result. I don't think it was, like, spectacular, but I think that I made it work. So I do think it looks metal, and even though like it's not, non-metallic metal painting, but it's a big difference from doing Iron Man to like, and particularly with a favorite character, and doing the Goblin Glider. And so I knew I was going to be doing metallics. Now, it'd be easy just to say I'm just doing like some sort of red metallic and gold metallic, or silver and just glossing red over it, and there you go, I'm done. And I am going to put some effort into it still. I am planning on, my goal is to paint the whole thing in sort of a silver, aluminum sort of metallic, and I'm going to airbrush it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to edge highlight the areas that are going to be red with, and I've kind of changed my mind even today on this, but it was always going to be with just a lighter aluminum, like a lighter metal. I'm thinking I might do either just a lighter metal or a combination of a lighter metal and a light gray. And then once I've done that edge highlighting, I'm going to spray the whole thing with an airbrush with Tamiya Clear Red. I'll be diluting this down with a 99% isopropyl alcohol, because this is an alcohol-based product, where it dilutes well, better in alcohol is what I'm told. And so I'll be doing that, candy coating it, and so hopefully with it being clear, I'll capture the edge highlighting if I used a bright enough edge highlights, and hopefully with using a brighter metallic, because I'll talk about the choices in metallics, but I'm basically looking at using sort of a darker aluminum over the whole thing, and then just doing a bit of a zenith with a lighter aluminum, or a mixture of a lighter aluminum, and then taking the lighter aluminum a bit more pure, perhaps even with some gray, and doing some edge highlighting, and then I'll do the candy coat of the red. When I'm all done with all of that, I'm going to go in with a gold metallic on the gold metallic pieces, and then I'll likely do a wash and touch it up, and perhaps on the gold do some edge highlighting as well. So that's kind of the plan. And so even though I am doing metallic painting, I'd like to think I'm trying to definitely still put some effort into my highlighting and special effects on it. I picked these up, and I mentioned I got Vince Venturella's product review is what made me interested in these. I have to say, I've used all three already, but I primarily used the dark aluminum. That's what I used for Thor's armor, and I did do a Vallejo wash over it too to get the recesses, but I'll tell you, this has been washed, but this stuff is beautiful. It's the best metallic paint, particularly acrylic paint, that I have worked with so far. It can go straight into the airbrush. It's really thin, and it covers really well. Super shiny. And that's the dark one. And now I also did highlight some of the areas on Thor's armor, on the helmet and things, with a mixture of the dark aluminum and the white aluminum, which is much brighter. This stuff is really great. And then I also used just a little bit of the gold. So I didn't really get a good taste for it, but I used a little bit, let's see if I can get it here, of the gold on that little belt buckle. Which is hard to really get a reflection out of that because it's so small. But I think, though, from what I've seen so far, that this will be really, really nice. You can see how thin that is. You can see the air bubbles in it when I shake it up. But I think it's going to be really, really nice for the gold in Iron Man's armor. And I think that it'll also be really nice for putting the initial coat of dark over the whole thing with an airbrush on Iron Man before I do anything, and then doing various mixtures of the dark and the light to varying degrees to show zenith lighting as well as edge lighting. So that's the plan for Iron Man. I am excited. I am still a little nervous. I hope that it comes out well. But that is the approach I'm taking. I think it's with the materials I have at my disposal and the techniques that I know currently. I think it's my best shot at doing my best painting for my favorite character at this point. So we'll see. I mentioned something else. Well, I will do Captain America, and I am really looking forward to painting up Captain America too. You can probably guess that I'm on Team Iron Man. I haven't watched the movie yet, believe it or not. I haven't had time. I'm also just kind of cheap when it comes to movies. I will likely see it, but I didn't even watch Deadpool, but I'm not a Deadpool fan. I don't really know that much about Deadpool, but I heard it was so good, so I'm going to watch that eventually. Despite being on Team Iron Man and the whole Civil War thing, I really do like Captain America as a character, and I love the movies for Captain America too. I did pick something up that I'll show that's related to this. This might have been a bit of a mistake. It's one of those things where, well, I'll just mention first. So I got Dr. Doom, and he will, and most likely with this pose, show up in this game fairly soon, I would say, relatively speaking. And the thing, though, is, as you can see, I got it for $18.95 Canadian. This will be, significantly higher priced when it's re-released with the card, which you can eventually just print it off anyway. Any way you look at it, it's going to be higher priced. And so it's always a deal to be able to get them now if you can, before they re-release them. So that was one of the reasons why I got it. They only had one left, again, in the same store that I looked at before. Dr. Doom is definitely, he probably is easily my favorite Marvel villain. I already looked at the sculpt. I think it's beautiful. I had no concerns. It's simple, but sort of really good simple. I could think of better poses. I wouldn't mind him trying to cast a spell or shooting lightning with his hands or something, but he's just sort of like sitting there like the boss with his arms crossed and looking really down at you, His armor looks really chunky. One of the things I like, you can see the rivets in it and stuff. I've always loved Dr. Doom's armor, and just it always looks so simple. But I always thought that was cool. He's got a really nice cape. It fits in really well. I was looking at it. It does fit in pretty decent. At least when I first looked at it, yeah, it's right there. You can see the fit on this, despite this being like an older cast and things. This one actually was really a nice example. So I'm not at all sorry, but it's like blowing in the wind like that. It's going to be very cool. The reason why it may have been a mistake, in the worst case scenarios, I lost $18.95 or whatever, or I'm spending it again, but they could release this in a set with like Doom bots or something with the rules, in which case the rules I won't need. I can usually just print those off, but I'll have to get like the Doom bots if they run as a team or something like that. So like if they end up releasing, they already have Loki and Magneto and Doom, and they have a number of characters, Thanos, like they have a bunch of them that are already been released just in the past, just not since the game has been released. They let's say release them as like a 4-pack or a 3-pack, like with the rules. There's a good chance I may have to end up getting another one of these anyway, but I'm not going to worry about it, and I'm just going to enjoy painting them in the meantime. And worst case scenario, I just paint a different one up differently or something like that, or give one to somebody else that happens to need one for some reason. Maybe they have the Loki and the Magneto, and like they don't want to buy the whole pack and they just need one. Then I might buy a pack and give them mine or something. Who knows? But I'm looking forward to painting Doom. I won't be painting him likely before I paint my X-Men up and other things first, but I kind of just wanted to get him, just so, because I almost couldn't resist. I was picking up those paints and I just picked him up at the same time. So yeah, I'm really enjoying painting the Marvel stuff. I've kind of slowed down on my productivity lately. I am working on the Titans inch by inch on that sculpting. I haven't gotten a tremendous amount done. I just kind of sized up my chair, but this is an Avengers video, so I won't go into that at the moment. But yeah, so overall, I'm happy with my plan on how I'm going to do Iron Man. I'm happy with how Black Panther and the Black Widow came out, I'm exceptionally really happy with how Thor came out. I think he came out really nice, and so I am happy with that. But and I'm happy with the way Hulk's coming along. He's going to be really fun to paint. I can't wait to do that. But so yeah, I'm enjoying this stuff. I think now that I'm starting to get towards even at least having like even one team approaching to be painted before I start the next, I'm going to start printing off initially my paper buildings that I'm going to insert foam structural supports to as well, so they're a bit more sturdy but paper. And then as I get into the games and get further along with terrain or in just the city and things in general, I'll probably convert over to MDF buildings. I'm going the paper route first because I just want to be able to play, and they do look decent if they're built well and taken care of. They do end up looking decent. So, all right, everybody. I hope everyone is having a good week, and talk to you later.